Hi everyone. We will be waiting for a few minutes, getting other panelists to join, and then we'll start. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Bisema.
Hello.
We
Hi.
are
Am I
just
audible?
getting everyone else to join as well. Then we'll start.
Sure. Sure. Am I audible?
Sorry, I cut you off.
Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, thanks everyone who is joining us. We are just sending invites to all the panelists to connect with us, and we will start in a few minutes. Hello, hi Shruti.
Hi. Is the camera angle okay? Am I looking like
Yeah, so the
that?
camera angle is, yeah, it's
Okay,
for the
great.
frontal. Yeah, we're just waiting for Avali to join us and we will start in a few minutes.
Okay.
Just Shruti, you're vertical now.
Great.
Okay, I see a couple of people are here. Thanks for joining us. We will just start in a few minutes. We're just waiting for one more panelist to join us. Thanks everyone who is connecting. Please give us a few minutes. So Supriya is asking if the interview will be available later on to watch. Yes, it will be. We'll leave it for everyone to watch. Yeah, we'll just start in another 2 minutes. We're facing a little technical difficulty with having Avali connect.
My cat wants to join the live. Is any one more member allowed?
Really, our tech runs want to know. Okay. Hmm. Okay, I think this should work now. I'm really hoping it does.
Would you like to us to join and leave and join back again?
Yeah, so I don't think that'll help. I'm not sure what the tech glitch is.
Okay.
So what I'm thinking is that we can start going ahead since everyone is also
Yeah.
waiting.
Yep.
And meanwhile, I've I was speaking to Avni to try a few things. We would see in case any of them works.
Sure.
Otherwise, we'll check if Avli is also speak okay, is maybe speaking to us on chat with a few comments. Um, yeah, but yeah, so Avli will try a few things. Meanwhile, we'll start.
Sure.
So hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. And we, in the month of July, we had published an Indian Wheel of Power and Powerlessness based on Sylvia Duckworth's work. And as part of like our goal of conceptualizing a comprehensive picture of intersectionality in India, we will now be picking up each of the socio-political factors that were there in the wheel, and we'll be deep diving to understand more about them. The first social political factor we've picked up is gender, which is the focus in this live as well. And in the coming months, we'll be focusing on sexual orientation and relationship status for a start. And a bit about us and the people that we have. So, I am Subrata. I'm a consultant with the Listeners Collective. I am a psychologist and a sexuality educator. And the Listeners Collective is a multidisciplinary team of mental health and social justice professionals. And amongst our panelists today, we have Busena. Busena is pronounced as she, they. And Busena is a Tamil Nadu based finance professional and a mental health professional in training. They're a queer person and they actively advocate for queer rights and the intersectionality of gender and sexuality with the other layers of identity of a person. And we have Shruti. Shruti is pronounced as she, her, and she's a queer feminist writer, communications manager, and editorial strategist with 16 years of multifaceted experience in the fields of journalism, feminist advocacy, NGO, and community based organizational support. PR, community media and podcasting, mental health awareness, and social media community building. And we're hoping that Avli too is able to join us soon. Avli's pronouns are they, them. They are a young trans feminist and activist working in the YP Foundation's Queer Rights Program. The work is focused on the creation of pleasure affirming safer sex resources for advancing the sexual rights of trans masculine persons and facilitating increase in information and knowledge among young queer people on existing laws and legal frameworks. Um, yeah, so that's a bit about everyone who is here today. And I'll start with the first question I have. And please feel free to take and pick whichever question you feel like, wherever you feel like adding. Okay, Shruti has just dropped off. I'll keep adding. I'll add Shruti once again, but meanwhile, in case Prasanna, you would like to take the first question. So, what are like some things you wish you had learned about gender as a child?
So I think earlier in life, I wish that I understood that gender is part of a person's identity, right? And it makes up for the person who they are.
Mhm.
What we have been taught about gender as we grow up, it's very binary that exists in male and female, and
Yeah.
within these binaries itself, there are like very distinct lines that have to be adhered to. So I wish and if people do not adhere or they do not stick to these boundaries within their own genders, if they are ridiculed, they looked at as an abnormality, they are policed and whatnot, right? They're discriminated on in a very short, said word. So I wish that someone told me that it's okay. The gender is something it's just flows. It's very fluid with one's own identity. It keeps on evolving, and you can just explore what suits. How what suits best how you relate with the world and with how you relate with your own experiences in life. I think that's something I really would. I think that's some I wish that I would have understood better when I was growing up.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Okay, Shruti is also just coming back.
I also see the YP Foundation handle have joined. Not sure if they can
Yeah,
join from that handle.
yes, I'm not sure if that's Avli or if someone else has also joined in. Welcome, actually. Yeah, we had just started speaking about, what do you wish you would have learned about gender growing up? And Busena was just speaking about the, binary way in which, okay, Shruti dropped off again. Okay. Um, I'll just give it one more shot.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we have, I think, Avli joining in too, I hope. Yeah, Shruti, we were just beginning to speak about
Yeah.
what messages we've learned. What did we wish we had known about gender growing up? And Basena was just sharing about how for them they like the binary which we've learned and what happens when we transgress this boundary. And I'm wondering, do you want to add about your experiences, what you wish you would have learned about gender growing up?
Yeah, and thank you for thinking of me for this. And I'm so happy that I was able to participate with the Wheel of
Mm-hmm.
Power and Powerlessness also, and so happy to be here in your company, Sana. Um, I think one thing I really wish we could have been taught was that how gender can be questioned. It's not like some unquestionable, rigid, universal truth, and that it's not fluid and I think it's been so empowering to know that gender is essentially performance of, social
Mm-hmm.
roles and how you wear and what you wear. So it's been very, very interesting for me to go through my phases and, observe myself enjoying different forms of expression like long hair, short hair, this, that. I mean, and I wasn't able to do that in childhood because it was like one template to follow,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you were the good girl and, score well, get married, have kids. So it's like um, it would have been so freeing to know that that's a path you can question and that's a path you can customize, depending on the phases of your life and what you like and what makes you happy. But I also realize, and I'm sure like Zaina would also agree, anybody working in gender would agree, that that's the power of that realization. And that is why we don't get told that, because it's easier to control when you have like strict boxes and strict labels to put people in. Imagine if everybody was free to choose, they're like, they imagine
Mm-hmm.
chaos. But it's been a joy to be a part of gender movements, have my queer realizations, be part of queer movements, see a lot of fabulous people, because the, you realize that all the boundaries that we felt existed and can't be moved and can't be erased actually can be erased and are so fluid. And you're allowed to be confused, you're allowed to experiment, you know? So that's been the joy of realizing that gender as a concept is not infallible, is not super strict.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I completely resonate with what you both are saying. I think since this conversation also started with this wheel of power and privilege, I think when I'm hearing you both speak, I'm just thinking of how, these structures of gender that are out there, they're also probably a means of control of, this is how you're supposed to behave. And the moment you like step out of that control, there are repercussions to it. So simply the thought of, that, okay, we're not going to follow these rules now, how that is so freeing. Yeah.
And I also kind of observed that, like, when Shruti was talking about, their experience of gender, it's everyone has their own experience with their gender, with their own gender identity, with exploration. But somehow there are these common things, talk about, the rigidity of it. We talk about the power structures of it, and these are the, that's where I think, we all can meet at a common point. So that's how I think that brings us together. It's quite interesting. It's very different, yet there's sometimes the same. Sometimes deep down the same also.
Yeah, so true, absolutely true. Because we always think that, like I think there is so much trauma and there is so much stress with following rules of gender, especially gender roles. Like this is what you need to learn, be it cooking, washing, doing whatever. Have maternal instincts, aim for heterosexual happiness. It's like uh, you have to really suppress and just keep aside so many parts of your real self, and that's such a stressful way of living. So just being in a gender fluid space, being amongst circles where there is a more open understanding of gender is is so powerful. And I completely agree, we find so many commonalities, and it's such a revelation to feel that gender is not um, the common meeting point. there is so much else. And it's interest, it's us as individuals, and not what social dictates are as to how we should behave.
Yeah, absolutely. And also an update on Avli, because she's not able to join. She will type out in the chat, and I will read out from her side, from their side. Sorry. And Avli says a hello to everyone, and says
I
that so much for being a young person who's not able to figure out technology today, and that they are very happy to join this conversation, and will keep inputting their thoughts here on chat. And they say that it's very lovely to see all of us and are learning a lot from the conversation. And we were just speaking about what everyone wishes they could have learned about gender as a child. Please feel free to keep inputting your thoughts as well. Um, um, and I really like that word you used just now, Shruti, of revelation. That gender is not these strict boundaries; it's a revelation for us. Yeah. And I'm also wondering for all of you, like, how do your experiences of your gender, how do they intersect with your other identities?
you want to go on first, Vasuki? Because I can put the first question first. So
Okay.
Um, oh, it just intersects with everything. If I think about it,
that's
it
the
just
answer.
informs everything. It
It sounds
really
like I've
does.
asked like a massive question.
Yeah, I have to like condense all that is opening up. Like I have 20 tabs opening up. Um, yeah, I mean, um, to give context, I grew up in a very difficult home, so there was a lot of gender-based violence there. And it's been like years and years and years of overcoming that, dealing with the trauma, all of that.
Mhm.
But the thing was that because this was happening, it really triggered this thing in me that I need to understand what's happening and why it's happening, and why there is one perpetrator who's really getting away with a lot and is still getting social acceptance, is still considered a good man, good father, whatever. And then there is this other person who's trying her best, is an amazing parent, doing so much, clearly works hard, but gets none of the credit. So that was the first sort of dichotomy that you notice, that there are benefits to certain gender, and the fact that somebody is hardworking, compassionate, good parent, good woman, good
Mhm.
whatever, doesn't change the fact that she is treated badly still. So that was my foundational understanding, that how powerful gender is, you know, and what kind of behavior is expected of you, and most importantly, what kind of behavior you will be punished for or you'll be let off for, you
Mhm.
know. So, and that foundational understanding, I am weirdly thankful for. I'm not thankful for abuse. I'm just thankful for, opening that understanding in my head, because it led me to read up about or talk about gender roles. It helped me read up about heterosexual relationships, the marriage structure, nuclear family, so much else. So everything, you just suddenly see this very long link, a very long chain of things affecting each other. So that was my start, and I till this moment realize that everything is connected to that conditioning of how we should behave, where we should keep quiet. Most importantly, where do you assert your rights? Most importantly, where you assert your dignity, you know, where you can avoid violence. All of these things are connected to gender, and that is a daily realization. So I would feel that it's a topic we can speak for hours about, I think.
Mhm.
I mean, I totally echo what Shruti says, and when they said she said about, it opens a lot of tabs, it's everything. So I just thought of the wheel of power. I feel, so if I had to say metamorphically, if this wheel goes really fast, everything becomes a blur, it just becomes one whole object. So I think that's how, so we're like today looking at gender, tomorrow sexuality, but I think, if it really goes really fast, when you see it in motion, it's all the same. Especially with the more oppressed you are, it all kind of, the more intersectionalities that come into play. For me, gender has what it has played out in terms of access, access to spaces, access to opportunities, access to, so I think, I don't know, access to everything, right? So access to expression. So in terms of spaces, something that's as small as, spaces to play. So often women are kind of ridiculed for not being able to play a sport or for not being able to throw a ball properly. What one does not realize is that women do not have access to go out and play with people. If they go out, it's all the the open spaces are either occupied with with people identifying as males, or they're not safe for whatever reason. Or or if they talk about access to, if they say no, a girl should not play sports, you want to be start looking, you're supposed to start doing more feminine things. So I think something as simple as that, to access to, when you say opportunities, while growing up, it's always expected that women are supposed to, okay, down the line you have to have family to take care of, so don't be very ambitious because you're not going to be able to take a call on where you want to work, what you want to work, how long you want to work. So you will have to be ambitious only till maybe your one particular age, and beyond that, it's kind of the blue sky. You don't know what's happening. So these kind of things really kind of limited myself while I was, I think, during my life, and it still does. Somewhere I think there's a lot of unlearning that I need to do, despite my own exploration of gender and what it means to me, and how it relates to to my lived experiences. It's still, I would still have to distance myself from what I've been conditioned to so far, and say, no, that's something that I'm imposing on myself. Probably I'll have to stay, kind of not do away with it. Something as simple as, if you're sharing a space with different people, something as, doing the dishes, you're naturally expected, okay, since I'm a woman, okay, we are having a get together here, okay, women have to come clear the dishes away, and then the men can just stay back and have a good time. And this has to do with, probably the religion that I'm also, by birth, with no particular, I would say, I would not say judge or any fault of any religion, but I think definitely that the religious values also kind of seep into how gender plays and gender roles. So I think that's also, women are supposed to dress a certain way, not dress a certain way, and there's a whole debate that goes around on, and we are talking about what's happening in Iran, we're talking what's happening in Karnataka, and on the same matter, but it's all, the center of it is this woman. Yeah, it's like what she has to do, what she does not have to do, and the whole world is debating about it. We do not talk about what men have to do, what men do not have to, or abortion rights. Right? So I think it's, as Shruti rightly said, I think I'm going on a rant here, but definitely, it's not something that we can talk within 1 hour or so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I hear both of you speak about these, these expectations that are there, the rules that are there. Here, both of you sort of outline those rules, or what is allowed, what is not allowed. It really hit me, Busana, when you spoke about play. That play becomes difficult to access. Because that's such a, it's such a childhood fun thing to do. It's such a simplistic thing to do, and it just hit me when you said that access to play gets impacted because of gender. That how can something so fun, so simple, also get impacted by this? Um, the sadness of it, I think that this is what's getting impacted. Um, and um, and I think, Shruti, when I was hearing you speak, I was also thinking of sort of the ways in which people are also responding to all of these rules and expectations. Um, that it's not that I think people who are marginalized on the basis of gender, it's not that people are passively receiving. There's a lot that people are doing on an everyday basis to navigate all of these systems. Right? Sort of how you spoke about understanding where to assert dignity. Um, or when Vasena was referring to the things happening in Karnataka right now, and I think Iran. Right, so people are also actively responding to these things like constantly. Yeah, and that also leads me to the next question I had for all of you, which is that when it comes to gender advocacy, what personal or professional hopes do you all harbor? Like in the sense that there's a lot of laws, there's a lot of social practices that exist in our country, that exist in all over the world, which are regressive, which sort of make it difficult for people to exercise their rights. Right. So, what changes do you all hope to see in the socio-legal climate?
Do you want to go first?
Okay. Um, well, I know there's definitely a lot we want, to want. But I think the current existing laws that are still in place, be it, we have abortion laws or we have adoption laws, these things still talk about gender in the binary, or they talk about the mainstream genders like male, female, and then they look at queer genders, be it trans, non-binary, agender, they look at that as a separate category. So it's always looked at as a third category, I feel, which again feels like it's being pushed. We are being othered, which is not the lens I think that needs to be looked at while looking at any rights movement, any legislations. At the same time, I feel certain things that we have taken a couple of steps forward. I think that there are definitely acts like the Trans Act for Trans Rights Act, which definitely talk. The intention is to give access and to give benefits to the trans community, transgender community. But again, it's they looked at it as a separate act, and they did not see how these acts will have play in other things. Something as simple as the POSH Act, the Prevention of Sexual Harassment in the Workplace Act, does not talk about queer entities. We still again look at it at binaries. So I think there's a lot of the existing structures need to be inclusive. We don't need separate legislations to talk about queer rights or gender rights, anything that to talk about gender. But I think the existing uh, laws need to be accommodated to yeah, to include gender, and gender is every form. There was this one time interesting anecdote when I was in a panel. We were kind of doing some sensitization for lawyers, for advocates, and for the minister officers of law in Tamil Nadu. And there was one person actually had this question saying that today, okay, you're talking about LGBTQIA plus, and this may 7 or 8 INTs under this umbrella, and we are making legislations to cover 7 INTs. Tomorrow, you're going to bring in 10 more INTs. Are we expected to? How are we expected to change the law to accommodate 10 more INTs? And the only simple answer was, you don't need to actually. That's where again, they're trying to put again the binaries of gender into the INTs. They say this. It's not that. Just you don't have to look at rights are based on what you identify as, but it's also based on just your identity as a human being, with definitely regard for the different intersectionalities of access, of class, of caste. Those definitely have to play. But yeah, it's not something it's not like a separate species that you're looking at. People look at it, gender as a species, I think.
Again, completely agree. For me, personally and professionally, difficult to separate that because so much of it is enmeshed in the kind of work we do, especially in the development sector. I really think that we need to get started at schools. It's so difficult to face audiences constantly as queer folks, as gender advocates or whatever else, and constantly present our case that look at us, we exist, please respect us. it gets exhausting. It's not fair. No, like most of the folks don't pay us for the mental labor. But if you have a generation of young folks who later will become judges, lawyers, and all the other doctors, all the other professionals who are going to come in contact with an intersection of people, if they have grown up with an understanding of what gender actually is and not what has been dictated to, and that there is a spectrum of identities and not just like eight, let me just memorize and that it's going to stay stationary for my life. If that understanding exists of consent, of dignity, of compassion, of human rights, that is a more long-lasting change, Like we all try our best as advocates, We want to run on hope. We are always hoping that things will change. We do a lot of pro bono work. We do whatever we can. But the thing is, we would rather not, We want to live our lives. We want to have access without having to prove that we deserve the access, So if it's taught in schools that different doesn't mean dangerous, that sexuality is a joyful spectrum again, all these things which we now realize to be so normal and so wonderful, why aren't we teaching our children that? Why aren't we teaching the children that violence is unacceptable, what abuse means, what consent means? We don't prepare them for a future where they are going to be out there having relationships, intimate, platonic, whatever. And then there is such a string of problematic stuff that follows, So, yeah, I always think that maybe if we start at the roots, that's where the change is, because it is such an exhausting endeavor. And to, as queer folks, constantly read about violence, about discrimination, it's so heartbreaking. It affects our mental health. It affects how we function, what we reveal about ourselves, how we present ourselves, whether we come out or not, and we deserve to live full lives, right? Like everybody else. So it is true about gender also. It's true about, what access women have, or female presenting persons have, what opportunities they're provided, and also understanding what patriarchal structures are, what misogyny means. Like it's such a powerful experience, say, in a kindergarten to question something as simple as, okay, he said this and she said this, but he was believed immediately while she was questioned, This is a foundational understanding of misogyny. This is a foundational understanding of patriarchy. Why a girl or a woman's or a female presenting person's words are immediately doubted or need proof, while a male presenting person's is immediately believed, So because it opens up your eyes to, okay, why did I behave like this? Why did I believe this person but not this person? That kind of critical thinking, I think that can really change so much, and it will become that less strenuous to talk about gender and all that we face because of it.
I would like to add something here because I'm sure we are definitely talking about, like how we are trying to constantly bring the focus on ourselves, like, saying like, hey, we exist, listen to us, and also questioning our behaviors, right? So there is this one thing I want to point out is about, representation. A lot of these movements around gender, again, it's sometimes initiated by cishet men, and then they kind of again dictate who gets to speak, who does not speak, how, what is, in what ways. So I think on that note, I think having this conversation, the different presentations of gender in this panel itself is a good start for, talking about this thing. Also, sometimes we also, and sometimes when we talk about feminist movements, cis men kind of sometimes want to exclude themselves out of this movement. thinking, okay, they think it's something that essentially that only women speak about. They just want to go about on a rant and they are speaking about something.
Yeah.
What they do not realize is that men can also be very involved, but not. They see again binaries. They get involved either they don't take up main space and drive it, or they're not involved at all. They do not understand that they can coexist as allies and amplify the voices that are already spoken about, that are already existing in the space, grassroots level especially. The second thing I also want to talk about is, again, the in terms of gender, because again, in the hierarchy, if any behavior is always attributed towards the highest hierarchy, right? So if you are a woman, if you have to succeed, you will have to behave like a man. If you are a non-binary person, you will have to succeed and behave like a cis woman. If you're a trans person, you will have to expect it to look like, as again a cis
Yeah.
woman. So it's not very hierarchical. It just rolls up to the next level, and that level is something again I think that needs to be, I don't know, broken or dismantled. Again, and as at the beginning, rightly pointed, it's all about power structures. So that's just 2 points I wanted to add.
Yeah, and it will make such a big difference if we learn about our bodies differently right from the start. Like it takes so much effort when you are grown up, so to speak, and then you realize, oh my God, you're like a ball of insecurities. You don't wear this or you don't want to do, and and that kind of shame and guilt, and this is what you should wear, this is what you should cover, and you should definitely not be more than this particular weight. I mean, that really affects you so deeply. Like I have, I have been body shamed all my life, like at every age, at every like it has been friends, it has been absolute strangers I meet on the street, and they feel completely comfortable commenting on my body, a person who they have no clue about. So there is this whole structure working to remind you your place and what you should do. So it's not just home and your spouse or your partner. It's just generally out there. So when I go out with shorter hair, I can bet my ass somebody will tell me, girls look better with longer hair. Nobody asks that person. So it's like this is the social pressure that just keeps like pecking at you, like, oh, you are, out of the line. So can you go back into that box, and behave as a woman is supposed to behave? And why aren't you married? You're in your late 30s and you're going to be alone and you're going to be one of those miserable spinsters. And the messaging is annoying to say the least, and also it's constant. And one of the things that people, I think, don't realize is that one of the results of wanting to live the way you want to is that sometimes it's very lonely. You have to filter out a lot of people. You have to keep your circle small sometimes to be safe. And there are so many people who say ridiculous stuff about you and you don't want them around you. So it is a lonely thing to do because people would rather follow convention than support someone who wants to be themselves. I'm not blaming them this way or that. There is so much benefits to following convention. So why won't people follow? So yeah, I mean, I don't even think of myself as being unconventional. I'm just wanting to live the way I want to live. So it becoming some kind of statement shows that the general expectation is that let the defaults continue, let the status quo continue, and everybody else who's doing something different is a risk, is a danger, is a threat, and they should be, maybe in some way or the other, their life should be difficult. I want to just answer one question in the chat about the kindergarten. So I was a kindergarten teacher for a brief period, and I had like 4 kids. They were aged 4. Okay, so they're so young, precocious, beautiful children. But we had like one activity which was like a pool activity, like all of them like splashing around and all of that. Supposed to be really, really just fun. And there was this kid, a girl who had this 2-piece, like very cute swimsuit, and the principal of that tiny kindergarten was so horrified. She's like, how can her mother dress her like this? Blah, 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 blah. This is a little child. She's barely 4, you know. And she was saying all of this in front of the child, and the child is aghast, and she's like, what is going on? What's happening? And then in the end, she was not allowed to wear that because her body was already being policed. And the other, like, there were 2 boys in the class, and they were also sort of absorbing that messaging. So this kind of gender separation, what you can show, what you can't show, because these boys are standing shirtless there, right there, wearing just tiny trunks. So they, like, it starts so early, right? That you are supposed to wear this and you can't show this, and this is how you're supposed to behave. And I was very taken aback by that, and she really didn't agree to what I was saying, you know. So yeah, it does start very early.
And to sort of add to that, I remember in some of the social psychology books we had, there were a lot of researches quoted about how the concept of gender for any person around the age of 2 or 3 years old, people start developing concepts of gender. And I think
Yeah.
any concept of gender is by nature biased. Um, so I would say that a child as young as 2, 3 probably also would might hold biases about gender. Like I think an incident that always stands out for me is I was this one time traveling in a train and I was eating something non-vegetarian. And there was this very young child, probably 5 or 6 years old. And this child looked at me, looked at the food, and she told me that, how are you eating non-veg? I was told that girls don't eat non-veg. There's a very young child who like had
Yeah,
that concept.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
and kids pick up, kids that age, and now more so very fast, they pick up everything that they hear,
yeah.
right? Um, yeah, so I think we can keep on going, speaking about this. This is a very vast, very endless conversation. There's a lot to speak, lot to share, lot to also hold space for. Um, but in the interest of time, we'll have to also start wrapping up today. Um, and I'll start with thanking you both for joining in and thanking Avli for giving a lot of time to trying to join in. Yeah, hopefully we can have them for another conversation. But I think if I also look back on things that are coming up today, I hear a lot about the emotional impact of being queer, the emotional impact of, like, if you're marginalized by the nature of it, you end up coming into advocacy. And then there are costs to that. It's not sort of, I think, what Shruti was saying, that, just let us be. And that would be one of the hopes, because this work is not easy. It's almost like you're constantly holding your breath anyway, and then more so as you work. And sort of what Vasena was also speaking about, inclusivity, right? That by nature, um, even the diversity and inclusion work by nature of it, it's not very pleasant, right? It starts with an othering. And when that work is happening, there is a constant othering happening, that the structures exist for certain genders by nature of it, and we'll have a special unit of diversity and inclusion to come and look at all the other people. Right. So there's the structural othering that exists also. Is painful, is hurtful to constantly be witnessing, constantly experiencing. So I think what I'm also understanding is a hope for a world where these kinds of biases, these kinds of structures, these kinds of control of power possibly would not exist one day, and then for people to also start young. Right? Because if we're giving biases very young, it's only fair to also give the other knowledge very young. Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, so thank you, both of you, for joining in. And we'll,
Yeah. So thank you for having me on this panel. Thank you for Listeners Collective for hearing our voices, and also for Shruti. A lot of things that you said, it really echoed what I thought, but you just put it in a better way. So it's been a pleasure to be on this panel, and I think there was this, one question about how do we start at the grassroots level. I think these are the discussions that impact the bigger change. It all starts with us, with our homes, with our own self. We realize that none of us are perfect and none of us know it all, but we are just willing to explore, hear what others have to say, and maybe question what we have believed in so far. I think that's all that matters. Yeah, I think so
Thank you so
thank you
much.
for having. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much. Bye bye.
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 And thanks to everyone who joined in.